Hey everyone, welcome back to Football Update. This is Andy.
And this is Robin.
Today, very simple episode. We're just going over the wild card games, our thoughts on it. And then, of course, talking about the divisional games. We're recording this on Saturday, so we have 2 games tonight and 2 games tomorrow. So, starting off the wild card weekend, Robin, we had a Browns-Texans wild card game. The first half was very close. Then Joe Flacco kind of turned back to his previous couple years' form. I believe it was 2 pick sixes.
Yeah.
And just C.J. Stroud continues to impress. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a game that was, like you said, very competitive in the beginning. At one point, it was 14-10 Cleveland. Stroud with, I think, 3 touchdowns in the first half. And he almost had a fourth to Nico Collins they just overthrew. So they're up 24-14 at half, and then the bomb kind of fell out with a couple pick sixes in the third quarter by Joe Flacco, and D'Amico Ryans probably, if there was any question who was the better Coach of the Year candidate between him and Kevin Stefanski, I think maybe that might, although the voting might already be in by now, but I think you could make a little bit of a stronger case now with D'Amico Ryans. Stroud, again, just having like a historically great rookie year. No big names. No one thought much of the Texans roster before the year, and obviously Tank Dell developed as a rookie before he got hurt, and Nico Collins was always kind of a talented guy that didn't produce big until his third year this year. But they've gotten Derek Stingley, the number 3 pick, who was just ahead of Sauce Gardner in the last draft a couple years ago at corner, and everyone's thinking, you should pick Sauce. And Derek Stingley has probably been as good as any corner in the league ever since he's gotten back healthy into the lineup midway through the season. And then, just they've gotten a surprisingly great contribution from Devin Singletary in the backfield when I thought it would be a Dameon Pierce 1-2 punch. It's actually been Singletary through much of the back half of the season being the stud back for them. But I think it's definitely puts a damper on what was a very impressive year for Cleveland for much of the year. They looked about as loaded as any team, even with, going to their 4th quarterback, Nick Chubb getting hurt, going to backup tackles, and now it was so rough to the point that lost that they let go a bunch of the offensive staff, Alex Van Pelt, the OC, the running back, and the tight end coach. And you would think a year after they won 11 games, it kind of overachieved. Why would they make those moves? And you start to put the pieces together, and it's like, maybe ownership isn't too happy with how much they were able to get out of the star quarterback, or how little they were able to get out of the supposed star quarterback before Deshaun Watson got hurt. So maybe they're trying to find some pieces to, get him playing at the level that they hoped he would be able to, and be able to repeat from his Houston days. And, a great matchup of these two teams with that trade in the back of their mind. And it's, the Texans, who obviously come out on top, not just, with the players that they've added, like Will Anderson and other guys, but just in terms of being in a much better spot than Cleveland.
Yeah, moving, before we move on, I should say, next year, there's a great line from Doctor Strange, the bill comes due.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second, guys. And you're going to have to pay Deshaun the full contract. I don't know if you can keep a lot of that defense, or parts of that defense, I should say. So that's going to be a very interesting offseason to see what's going on in Cleveland. A little buyer's remorse. And even though he didn't play, kind of some karmic justice that it was the Texans that bounced the Browns. Only disappointment was, I think we were all hoping we were going to be able to see a Joe Flacco in Baltimore, but It is what it is. Going to the fourth or fifth coldest game of the year in Kansas City, the Dolphins showed up. Tyreek Hill had one impressive touchdown, and after that, I don't know what happened with the Dolphins. Their offense was very flat. Despite the score 26-7, the Chiefs only scored 2 touchdowns, which is interesting. And how bad, we're going to get into a little bit later how beat up the Bills' defense is. Mm-hmm. But I think the Dolphins' defense was even beat up worse, and they were able to hold them to 2 touchdowns. And fortunately, got Harrison Butker. But so your thoughts on the game? Is the Dolphins kind of what we're thinking they are? Like they can beat bad teams, but once they get up to like those tough teams, they fall flat on the face. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Miami, through the past 2 years, in fact, has kind of been a team that September through November, you think they're as explosive as anybody in the league, they're as balanced as anybody in the league, and then they get to December and January, and the run game isn't as consistently good. Mostert's gotten banged up late in seasons the past 2 years. Achane has a chance to be really good back, but I think he's a little small at this point. May have to put on a little bit more muscle to last through the entire year because he can be as explosive as anybody. And then both Waddle and Hill, as fast and as great as those guys are, they tend to get beat up with hamstrings or foot injuries or stuff like that. And we knew that the weather environment wasn't conducive to what they would like to do throwing the ball down the field, but it didn't feel like they ever committed to the run game as much as they needed to have a big chance in that game. The one deep throw you're talking about to Tyreek Hill is an underthrown ball, and Tyreek was able to run back, get it, and then run into the end zone. But Tua did not look comfortable in that weather, and if you're going to get playoff wins in Miami, successful as Mike McDaniel's been the first 2 years, it's really success, like I said, September through November. And if you can only win in one environment, which is, at home, you gotta, you can't lose a 2-score lead on Monday night to Tennessee when you're up, 14 with 3 minutes to go. You gotta find a way to beat Buffalo in one of these big games. And then, their one win against a winning team was Dallas by 1 point, and that game could have gone either way if Dallas scores an early red zone touchdown or they call a holding on a play where Micah Parsons was probably grabbed a bunch on that final drive to score. So, they turned out, again, there's the term fraudulent, which seems like aggressive, but there's something there where they just don't seem to be the type of team that, as talented as they are able to beat the great teams, especially when they need to. And as for Kansas City, I think Vic Fangio did a great job for the Dolphins calling up plays, considering on the defensive end, considering they were, down to 3 and 4 pass rushers, like no Van Ginkel, no Bradley Chubb, no Jalen Phillips, Xavier Howard banged up through a bunch of the year. And, I think they made enough stops, because it could have been, if Kansas City scored every time they had a shot, it could have been a 40-burger. And, they were still kind of in it until late when it was 19-7. They have a 3rd and 20. All they have to do is not do anything dumb, and they get off the field. And there was a ticky-tack roughing the passer call, which gave them the first. I'm not sure if you saw Hard Knocks, but that was probably as mad as I've ever seen Mike McDaniel, who's usually even-keeled, get. But, it's they call those things against the great quarterback, so you got to be careful with that, and unfortunate as it is. So for Miami in the future, they're, I think, 40 to 50 million over the cap, and obviously they can do restructures and extensions and things like that, but how much are you paying Tua, considering he led the league in passing yards, but he hasn't won you anything in January as of yet? How much do you pay a guy like Jalen Waddle, who's been in the league 3 years and is explosive as any number 2 in the league, but he's not on the field often enough? Feels like they don't have tight end. Christian Wilkins up for a new deal. Teron Armstead, the left tackle, who's been banged up a bunch. He's not sure if he's playing much longer. So a lot of questions in Miami in the offseason to answer. And as for Kansas City, Mahomes keeps playing as good as anybody at his position, especially at home in the playoffs, but now he has to go on the road in one of the bigger games and maybe the biggest game of this weekend. And that'll be a new experience for him, at least postseason wise.
Absolutely. And then I think the most shocking game of the weekend, obviously Bills Steelers was supposed to be at 1 o'clock on Sunday, but that got moved because of the snowstorm. We'll get into that. I just gotta say for this game, wow! Like I lost money on this game. Not a lot. I got a free voucher. Then I spent $5 on a FanDuel. I figured, the Cowboys defense, smart purchase. Packers are young. I don't. Again, this is just me flabbergasted, guys. It's 48-32. I think at least 2 of those touchdowns for that 32 points was during garbage time.
Yeah.
The game was already like you made it seem not as bad as a world beat, but like your thought. What happened in this game, Robin? Like what? Like they were undefeated at home. Like was it 16 games in a row?
Pretty much, yeah. Basically 2 seasons worth. I think the last quarterback that beat them was Tom Brady, Week 1 in the 2022 season. And I think that was the Sunday night opener that year. But, it was Matt LaFleur playing and coaching aggressively, winning the toss and taking the ball first, and Jordan Love going boom, boom, boom right down the field, making it 7-0. Everything got a little tight in that building. Dak throws an interception with a great play by Jair Alexander. They go 14-zip. Another point, they get moving the ball again, and then Dak takes a sack on like a 3rd and 4 or something right when they're in field goal range, and then takes them out. Green Bay scores again, and then it's 20-0, but I'm like, okay, Dallas will get the ball after the second half. They score a touchdown here. They score a touchdown after half. They're basically back in it, and then he throws the pick 6 to Darnell Savage, and then that just kind of blew it open. And Jordan Love was just playing, you think as a Cowboys fan, we don't have to fear the Packers in the playoffs now that Aaron Rodgers and prime Aaron Rodgers isn't here, and then they find another guy who can play at that level so soon after. It's just, oh my goodness. But it just seemed off from the beginning because it was him and CeeDee Lamb, like either CeeDee Lamb couldn't catch the ball or the ball was behind him. And emotionally, CeeDee Lamb seemed a bit out of it, very frustrated. I think as soon as they fell behind, Dak and the offense got very tight. And Dan Quinn, for as much as been praised through the last 2 coaching cycles as a great defensive mind, down the stretch of this year, there's a lot of games that you're like, like the early 49ers game, he got exposed. The Bills game where they ran it, as many times as they did, he got exposed there. Miami exposed him to an extent. And then this game was just, oh my goodness, how many big plays down the field. Romeo Doubs looking like, prime, take your pick of any great Packer receiver, like prime Devontae Adams almost with the plays he was making. So it was a shocker in Dallas, and you're thinking during the week, they'll probably make some changes, and nope, they're bringing back the same crew, although it's pressure time again, because it's like, I believe Mike McCarthy's not going to get an extension, so he's just a lame duck coach, so it feels very Jason Garrett like in that sense. As for Green Bay, Jordan Love has been statistically a top 5, maybe top 3 quarterback since they started the year 3-6, and he's been on a heater. You don't really trust that Joe Barry defense quite that much, but they played great against Dallas. Yet where the same defense allowed Tommy DeVito to be player of the week. Baker Mayfield have a perfect passer rating in a game, and you thought after those 2 losses, well, they're not a playoff team, and then they find a way to keep winning, sneak in, and they're dangerous out. I'm not sure how much further they go, but they've basically, feels like kind of won the Rodgers deal when it was looking like it's probably not possible to hit on 3 straight quarterbacks, and lo and behold, Jordan Love's about as dangerous as any quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah, just it doesn't seem fair that they got 3 generational talents in the past 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
I would say Sunday night, most exciting game.
Yeah.
First time in their history, the Lions were playing at Ford Field. The only downside of the person playing against them was their former savior, Matt Stafford. And what a game it was. Just real back and forth. The score shows it 24-23. Before Robin gets into details, I just wanted to make the comment. Well, how much of a gangster and a tough guy Matt Stafford was. He cut his finger open. There was a shot where he got hit by 2 people at once.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I don't know what this man is made of, but it's pretty impressive. But your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, definitely the best game of the weekend. And it came down to the Rams kind of wasting a couple of timeouts early in that second half, and then kind of having to depend on their defense, which has been try-hard all year, but it's kind of Aaron Donald and a bunch of guys, although Kobe Durant was a great rookie addition for them, along with Byron Young, but it wasn't enough to stop a Detroit offense that scored the first 3 times they got the ball, and they were kind of able to move it throughout the game, but they only got 3 points in the second half, and I believe the Rams only got 6 in the second half, but it felt like both teams were on the cusp of scoring TDs on the second half, but then the defense would come with a great stop here and there. And then, like you said, Stafford was just on another level, threw close to 400 yards. I felt he was leading that comeback until they get to a 3rd down, and it looked like Puka Nacua was grabbed and then hit late, and they don't call it. They got a punt with, I think it was 4 minutes left. They only have the 1 timeout, and Ben Johnson coming up with the second and long play to pass it to Amon-Ra St. Brown to seal it, and Jared Goff throwing that dart and getting it done against his old team. Great game for all involved. It stinks that one had to go home, but Detroit finally being able to overcome those demons and win a home playoff game, that's definitely huge for them. And they get another home game when we thought that Dallas Detroit game would,
and just the last thing I want to say, just it's good for them.
Yeah.
You just saw the emotion in the fans. They say it to me, it felt like how we were. Oh my God! It's funny. Like the post Josh Allen. It's funny. That's when I came back home from film school. But anyone who's a little bit younger or doesn't really follow the Bills, we had a 17-year playoff drop from 2000 to 2017. So that's that's the only closest thing, and that's even double for them because they hadn't won a game in 32 years, I think it was?
Yeah.
They're just
God,
that's just thing to say. So congrats Lions. And I think you guys have a very good chance for this weekend's game, I should say.
Yeah.
So Monday at 4:30, change plans. Actually, I was supposed to go over to our house, have a nice pasta dinner, and do this Mercury movie night for a haunting premise. Then the game got switched. My cousin was nice enough. Well, hey, it's at 4:30, so you guys can watch the game beforehand. We'll just during the game. Bills Steelers, very exciting game. My favorite plays, surprisingly not number 1. It's close though. Is Josh running for 52 yards?
Yeah.
I'm not going down. Running for 52 yards. I think it's the longest run this year in the playoffs, and I think they say it was the longest Bills playoff run in history. Could be
Touchdown run, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had Khalil Shakir, who just seemed like it was a tackle. And what was that? So happy Khalil Shakir has been just playing lights out. And then, of course, you had the first two back-to-back touchdowns by our tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Only negative was the injuries. But, Robin, you can take it from here.
Yeah, it was a game where they got a bunch of fortunate bounces to start. They got the early touchdown drive where, they get the big play to Kincaid and then the one to Knox. They get the fumble from George Pickens and they go down a seam route to Kincaid. It felt like they'd gotten another fumble, and then there was a weird thing where it fumbled and Freiermuth's helmet hit the ball at the same time he was out of bounds. They get into the red zone, the Steelers, and then Kaiir Elam comes up with an incredible play after a couple missed tackles and a bad penalty. And he's just a guy that's fought through an ankle injury and all these people saying he's a bust and can't play. And for him to step up when, one of their injured guys who won't be able to play this weekend, Christian Benford, gets hurt early in that game. He steps up and makes a huge play there. They have the big run, like you say, to Allen. It was one where I felt like they could have cinched it earlier than they ended up doing. If, they're up 21-0, they're moving the ball. They have a couple weird calls before the 2-minute warning, not running the ball. And then they have the field goal attempt, gets blocked, and blocked back into their own side of the field. Pittsburgh scores. They make it 21-7, then 21-10. Bills add a field goal, and the Steelers score again, and it all of a sudden felt very tight again, felt very much like the Miami game in the playoffs last year where the Bills were up early, let Miami back in, and then couldn't quite close down to the very, very end. And then, I remember the 2-7 game a few years ago against the Colts, and they always seem to make these 2-7 games a little more difficult than they have to, but then they go with a big-time clock-killing drive, bunch of running by James Cook, getting those first downs, and then, like you said, the Shakir play, he catches the pass about 2 or 3 yards, and then breaks a tackle from Minka Fitzpatrick, and then just runs his way into the end zone, and that kind of cinches it. So they've found a way to be a different type of team down the stretch than they've been in past years where it's kind of like, Josh Allen, go figure it out on this play, and this play. Nope, they're able to run the ball, control the clock, and then when they need a play, they can always throw it underneath to somebody other than Steph Diggs, who's, been a warrior with everything he's played through this year. And, teams are taking him away, but if they can get it to other guys and have those guys make plays, it just makes everyone's job, including Josh Allen's, easier. It's the type of game plan that they'll maybe need throughout the end of throughout the rest of these playoffs, and then this upcoming weekend, of course. But Pittsburgh kept fighting hard. Mike Tomlin, there's been a lot said about how ineffective the offense has been in his time, and that still holds true, but you won't deny that they keep fighting in these playoff games no matter how far they get behind. But, it was a good, hard-fought win for Buffalo to get to the next round.
And our last game from the Super Wildcard Weekend, playing Eagles in Tampa Bay. Seeing it coming a mile away, the Eagles had been falling apart. This game was just a disaster. Just flip, no broken tackles. Just I had a feeling they were going to lose, but I was just flabbergasted at how bad. Then you had. And you just feel for Jason Kelsey on the sideline, just looking at. Again, he hasn't officially announced he's retired, but it kind of seems like he's on his way out. Your thoughts on this game? How the kind of turned around their season, and especially that Eagles collapse.
Yeah, so through 11 games, you had the Eagles at 10-1 and the Buccaneers at 4-7. And if you had said, 2 months ago that they'd both be in the playoffs, Tampa Bay would be the home team and would blow out the Eagles, I think you would have made a lot of money because people would have said that's not happening. And yeah, maybe the biggest collapse in NFL history. I don't think they're the first team in NFL history to start a year 10-1. Not only not win their division, but not win a playoff game. Whereas I think it was the 85 or 86 Jets were 10-1, didn't win their division, but did win a playoff game. So they just looked like a team. I think Troy Aikman even commented on it that looked defeated before they even started the game or played a snap. And like you said, they couldn't tackle. James Bradbury had a time he got beat deep by Mike Evans, and Mike Evans wasn't able to hold on to it. And if it weren't for drops, a game that was 32-9, it might have been 45 to 50 points because they had a half dozen drops on potential big plays. And offensively, a lot of criticisms of Brian Johnson as the OC and Nick Sirianni as an offensive mind, not really having a plan for the blitz, and it's 2 straight weeks where you have Wink Martindale and Todd Bowles, 2 of the more blitz-happy defensive minds in the league. And where are the outlet routes? Where are the blitz beaters? Where's the, max protect? There was none of that stuff. It was all empty, no motion, very little creativity. And then, they felt like a team that was playing a preseason game or just had already booked their tickets to Cancun. And I know that's a meme and that's a saying, but it felt like it just watching the game and just seeing how lackadaisical that they performed. But you do have to give credit to a Tampa Bay team that, as you said, finished the season off strong, went from 4-7 to 9-8. The last 2 weeks of the regular season weren't looking great. They, lost pretty bad to New Orleans. I know they made it close at the end, but it was a mostly bad game. And then, Carolina, they only won by 9, and honestly, Carolina had 1 or 2 touchdowns that they could easily scored, and that would have made it an even tougher game to get through. But, they came in, even with a bunch of the drops, kept responding. They're only up 7, and you're thinking, well, the Eagles, if they can get a drive together, they'll be right back in it. And Jalen Hurts has kind of regressed a pretty good amount, I feel like, this year. And the mistake he made on that safety, I honestly don't know what he was doing on that play. You're at the 13, you take the snap from there, and you end up taking a safety off intentional grounding. It just wasn't pretty. It was just him trying to do way too much. And, a team that felt like it was invincible through much of the year and able to win games, and was just, they were waiting for their peak to come, and it was like, well, maybe their peak was just escaping games at the start of the year and then just completely collapsing under the weight of all that expectation. And I know Sirianni, he's been in the playoff 3 straight years. That collapse is you got to think about what you're doing in the future at coordinators and coaches, because it's tough to go through that and have confidence in that group of people again, but we'll see what they do. Haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, I will say, when you heard Matt Patricia, a very good best. Part of me kind of wish they would have made it to the next round just so the Lions could get some revenge. But at the same time, this was just insane. I think at the very least, fire their coordinators. They don't know what they're doing. And for Baker, I don't think he'll get like one of the top contracts, but I think he started out competing for this job.
Yeah.
And now he's had a few incredible games, this one in particular. I mean, win or lose, if he has a good game tomorrow at 3, he could play his way into a contract. Yeah, very exciting. So moving to today's game at 4:30, both the 1 seeds who rested last week are playing. Starting off, Texans-Ravens. The Ravens are, relaxing, refreshed. Side. The only problem, unfortunately for them, Mark Andrews is not back as they hoped.
Yeah.
That Texans team's playing hot, and they also played Saturday last week and the Saturday before that, so they actually do have 2 extra days of rest. Both teams. This is going to be a very fun game. I kind of think the Ravens will pull it off, but I would not be surprised at all if the Texans pull off an upset. They're playing very incredible right now. A lot of weapons. Their defense is really good. I mean, that's what happens when you get one of the, in my opinion, the number 1 rookie, the offensive rookie, and possibly the rookie defensive player on your team.
Yeah. It's about, I think, a 9.5 line. And I kind of feel like the Texans will make it closer than that. No Marlon Humphrey for the Ravens, so you're going to get Nico Collins, and it's a lesser corner, but I do think they'll double him a pretty good amount. No Noah Brown for the Texans, so they don't have him or Tank Dell. They do have some decent depth at the receiver position with John Mechie, Robert Woods, but still a pretty big hit there. I think Stroud is very good against zone defenses, which is something that the Ravens play a lot of. So if they can get some big plays down the field, they'll have a decent shot. It's actually a rematch of his first initial start in the league, and he made a few plays here and there, but it was mostly dominant by Baltimore. Like you said, Baltimore, no Mark Andrews, but Isaiah Likely's been big time down the stretch, so I think he can make some plays down the field. And even though Derek Stingley, as I said before, has been playing great football, it's a Baltimore offense that can win without, being like, oh, we got to throw to a certain receiver. Oh, we got to play a certain way. They can run it down your throat. They can hit play action pass, even though, at Bill Pillion talking, oh, just put Lamar Jackson in the pocket. And it's like, he can beat you from or outside the pocket as good as any quarterback in the league, as, the Miami Dolphins saw in week 17. So, we've yet to see Lamar play MVP Lamar in the playoffs, and I feel like this is the game where he can put that narrative to the end. I don't think it'll be an easy win for Baltimore, but I do think they have the experience. They have great coordinators in Todd Monken and Mike McDonald, who we haven't heard much through the head coaching interviews yet, and I'm not sure why, because I think they've done their job as good as anybody in the league. So I think they come up with great game plans, and as great as Stroud and the Texans have been as a story, I don't think they have quite enough, but hey, if CJ Stroud plays at the level that he played against that Cleveland defense and maybe up a notch higher, they could find a way to win that one on the road. But for now, I think I'll take the Ravens.
Yeah, and I will say the other exciting tidbit of this, the CJ Stroud's first game of his NFL career was Baltimore. So got a rematch this year. That's very exciting. And I'm a Buckeyes fan, so I would love to see the upset. But I think we both agree this is going to be a very exciting game. Today at 8:15, we got the number 1 seed, 49ers. The world beaters playing the Packers. On paper, I think that the 49ers should soundly beat the Packers team. Again, we were talking about Joe Brady's defensive problems. Then again, the past few weeks, his defense has been getting better. They put up one hell of a fight against the Cowboys last week. And this team is young and hungry. And they got nothing to lose. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. That being said, I think I'm going to give it to the 49ers, but wouldn't be completely shocked if the Packers pulled off an upset. based on what they did last week. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, another one where it's the 9.5 line, and you're kind of like, huh, really? After what they did to Dallas, but San Fran's a different beast, and they're the ones that have dominated that rivalry, Niners-Packers in the playoffs throughout these years. So, you're going to need another otherworldly game from Jordan Love, and you're going to need that O-line that did a really good job against DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. They have to bring that same level against the D-line with Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Chase Young. I mean, if you're San Francisco, those are the guys that you've brought in to get that great pass rush against great quarterbacks and put all that money and draft capital into those players. So those guys got to show up for them. Both coaches, from the Shanahan tree, they're all, I think, on the 2011 or 2012 Washington staff that included Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, and, all those guys became head coaches but they didn't, actually work in Washington where, they were there for that time. So they have, similar type of game plans in terms of using motion, creative, play action boots, all things like that. Love, I think, more talented than Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy's been as efficient as any quarterback in the league. And if he can just get the ball to Debo, McCaffrey, Ayuk, who's probably their best pure wide receiver, even though you would say Debo's the better playmaker and gadget player, and then Kittle. And if those guys get in the open field against those Packer DBs who, outside of Jair Alexander, who's, playing through injury, there's some holes in that defense, and maybe Dallas wasn't able to exploit it as well, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan has some knowledge, and I'm sure it goes the other way with LaFleur of how, both guys want to approach the game. So I feel like it'll be a Niners close victory, but man, if Green Bay finds a way to win this one, it just makes that, this year that's kind of, a cherry on top every time they win a playoff game or something. They just put another one on top with how much they've exceeded expectations from like a very bad start to the year.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, this Slay the Dragon 49ers that has beaten you, what was it, like 4 or 5 times in the playoffs in the past decade? Yep. All with Aaron Rodgers, and if Jordan Love's the one that does it. That just adds to the story, yeah. And just quickly before we go to the next guys, it's funny you mentioned that Washington team with all those now current head coaches, and just shows how incompetent Dan Snyder is. We are much better off without him out of the NFL. Tomorrow, we're starting off with the NFC divisional game, Lions at Ford Field in Detroit. This is going to be a pretty exciting game. Baker playing incredible. He's got 2 phenomenal wide receivers in Godwin and Evans. I'm probably, just off the top of my head, missing a few other pieces that are pretty talented as well. I think they're going to put up points, but just in that stadium, just how momentum is going. I do know their one weakness, the Lions, is that secondary, but they have incredible front 7 defense, and that offense is firing on all cylinders. Ford Field was the loudest Ford Field ever was. Yeah. Last week, I have a feeling it'll be even louder. I think you can see nothing but blue in that stadium. Very exciting game. I'm going to give the edge to the line. Your thoughts? Yeah, Detroit is one stat where the Buccaneers defense, as strong as it can be with how much it blitzes, and those 2 linebackers in the middle, Devin White, Devontae David, have played at an incredible level down the stretch. One part they're weak is passes with motion. I think they, can't remember where I saw the stat, but they ranked the last in EPA per play in passes against motion, and the Detroit Lions love to motion and do creative things with Ben Johnson as the OC. So I think that's an area where they can take advantage and make some big plays down the field. And for whatever reason, the Eagles were like
one of, if not the least teams to use motion, and well, look where that got him in that opening round. But I feel like Detroit will have a plan for all those Todd Bowles blitzes, with Ben Johnson as the OC and having a chance to further prove himself as a head coaching candidate. They'll run the ball with Montgomery and Gibbs. Jared Goff doesn't mind taking all the underneath stuff. And it's a matchup of two former number one picks that had some early flash and then some down years, and then were able to pick it up with new organizations and play at a high level, and both could get very nice extensions in the offseason. So it'll be a fun redemption matchup for those two quarterbacks. This is a game where they had the Buccaneers receivers some drops. This is one where you can't afford those. You're playing against kind of a dead man team walking Philadelphia. So you're going to have to make all those plays. And Mike Evans has been as consistently great as any receiver in the league the past decade, but he does have those games where he has, a key drop or two, but I feel like they'll be on their game. I just don't know if it'll be enough scoring-wise with a Detroit offense to go up and down the field, and a defense that, has played well enough in key spots to win games, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back in the lineup. He does bring some swag and some energy, although some trash talk this week kind of saying that the Buccaneers receivers would look better with a different quarterback than Baker. And somebody mentioned Russell Gage, who got hurt early in the year. So, it'll be interesting to see if those two ever meet up and have a little talking to Baker and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But I do think the Lions are just a tad better, and with the home field, get to the NFC title game.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, all these games this weekend. Of course, tomorrow, the game me and Robin are most excited for.
Yeah.
Chiefs Bills, another Mahomes game. This, in my opinion, this generation's Brady man. They're split even wins losses. However, Mahomes has won the playoff games. This time, though, they're playing in front of Bills Mafia. Mahomes, the only time he played in Buffalo was the COVID year where there was no fans.
Yeah.
Just that you're excited about this game is an update. Granted, there are a lot of injuries on the Bills team. Some players. Some good news is Douglas and I'm sorry, who was the other person last week that was almost in? Was it Dodson?
Dodson, yes, Terrell Dodson. Yep.
Yeah. So you got those two possibly coming back, and the people that were not ruled out on Friday by Sean McDermott says there are a chance, even if you can get half of them in, that would be a blessing. And even if we can get at least one of our linebackers back, it would be good. A little worried about it, because of the injuries, but again, you got that phenomenal front set. I think we have one of the best defensive line units in the league. And Von Miller, he's been saying all that. He actually has been playing a little bit better every week. And if there's a time to come back to form, Von Miller, this is it. But you got Ed Oliver, you got Leonard Floyd, Greg Rousseau, Daquan Jones.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, you got some very great defense on the Chiefs side.
Yeah.
And before Robin gets into the details, I just have a feeling, if they were having trouble against that Dolphins team, with my opinion, who had even worse injuries on their defensive side, I think that could be favorable for the Bills. But again, I'm not putting anything in the cart in front of the horse. Your thought on this incredible game coming up?
Yeah, it's version 3 of Mahomes Allen in the postseason. As you said, it's 2-0 for Mahomes so far in the playoffs, 3-3 in total. Allen 3-1 the regular season. Terrell Bernard, that's going to be a huge one. If, like, when he had that ankle injury, they had the air cast, they had the cart, and it was like, not only were you weren't even worried about if he was going to have a chance to play this weekend. It was, man, he might be out a few months, yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Just the chance that he could possibly play tomorrow is just insane.
Yeah. So, they do have other back. Bailing Spector won't make it. Christian Benford's out at corner. They did get some good reps from both Dane Jackson and Kyer Elam. So we'll see what happens with the defensive back end. No Taylor Rapp, so you're going to see some more of Cam Lewis and DeMar Hamlin. So tackling is going to be paramount. Sometimes it was great against Pittsburgh, other times not. Teron Johnson probably going to be able to make it. Well, concussion protocol is interesting, but he's been able to practice throughout the week without too many issues. So if he can make it in, he's one of the best nickels in the league. Made second team All-Pro. Very versatile player. Kansas City, some late additions to their injury report. Willie Gay, questionable with a neck. Charles Omenihu had an illness, so he's questionable. Derek Nottie out. Their run-stuffing defensive tackle, so maybe the Bills run the ball a little more on them. Sky Moore couldn't get off injured reserve, and then Kadarius Toney ruled out. So some of their depth at receiver is very limited. So this is probably, there's talk of, well, this is the most vulnerable Chiefs team for the Bills to beat, but the Bills have their own injury issues as well. But they do have the home field. They have, Bills Mafia and that whole crew behind them. It's going to be windy and cold, but the Chiefs don't mind that. It's a little different from the Manning Brady rivalry, wherein when the Colts had that one home game in the playoffs against the Patriots, they had their dome where Peyton was at his best, and Brady was pretty great in the dome as well. But when Manning had to go out to New England and the snowstorm and the wind and the cold, that Colts offense went very cold and wasn't able to produce nearly the points and fireworks that they had in more hospitable conditions. So it is a game where you feel like if they can depend on the run game in key spots like they were able to last week and throughout the year with Cook, Ty Johnson, and then it's also a game where I feel like a Josh Allen, 10 to 15 carry game might be in line, just because you're going to need him to get the chains moving, keep it going, and not, have to play hero ball through the air, which, he's had to do a couple of times against Kansas City, and that's where Steve Spagnuolo can get you with some exotic blitzes, some creative stuff on the back end with talented corners like L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. So it'll be, hopefully the best game of the weekend, and hopefully one that Buffalo is able to pull through, but it's certainly not going to be one that you would think is easy at all.
So yeah, this is going to be a very exciting game. Like we were saying, it's this peculiar. The Bills have a few more offensive pieces, I think, than the Chiefs do this year. Could be very close. I got to go with my heart on this. I'm going Bills.
I won't pick it because I just got so much nerves about them, but I hope that that's the result.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, a very exciting football weekend. I'm sure both Chiefs and Bills fans are going to be watching the game today, hoping that the Texans pull off an upset.
Yep. Did you want to talk about any of the coach and stuff? I know we saw AP got the job in Vegas, and then nothing else has been announced, but just interviews and everything else. But
just quickly, Antonio Pierce, the right man, got the job. Seems like Mark Davis grew 3 sizes and didn't. I mean, it might have been that your most talented defensive player threatened to be traded. he wasn't signed. Belichick got a second interview with the Falcons, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, they're asking for a ton of interviews, including our coordinator. So, yeah, it could be a very exciting few weeks of head coaching jobs searches.
Yep, definitely.
But, this is gonna be a very incredible week of football. This is what we waited for all season, and that will be it for this week. This is Andy,
and this is Robin.
Have a good week.